We are back on the record, and the commission's preliminary determinations, subject to testimony supporting it, are to grant the requested party status terminations. We're not entirely sure about 9E, but we will see what the testimony shows. So if the applicant wants to give a brief overview, I think the nature of the project is pretty well documented and understood, but if we could see a site plan and have someone on behalf of the applicant walk us through it, that would get us going. And the criteria that we are interested in are the ones that have been requested party status on today. So the applicant has the floor.
Fair. For the record, third their objection, our status.
So noted.
Also, I think it is particularly relevant for the distraction.
Okay, well, should I speak up?
You may.
Well, I don't want to repeat everything because we've been through the hearing and I know you've heard everything.
The parties who were not notified the first time around haven't, so just give us a high level.
It's 32 condominium and townhome units here, and then a single building here, what we're calling the staff housing building, that's the intention for its use. There's another 16 units in a single building there. It's got this private road going in. It will attach to the existing water and sewer system, which has adequate capacity without further adjustment to support the whole project. The intention is to, if everything goes well, and we can, begin construction in the spring. And we expect it will take a few years to get through the full development. Since the last hearing, we responded to the HRO, the outstanding, permits have been submitted or complete. And we answered the outstanding questions of A&R around the trash bins and the bears and all the various things that were asked at that hearing, and responded to the specific questions about the water company, which I'll just summarize by saying that, as I mentioned, it does have an existing current capacity to support it. And the project will be a demonstrable benefit to the community in that respect because of the addition to the rate base that it represents. And there's a separate project coming down the pipe for the water company, a capital project that's going to be very expensive. And so the addition of the rate base is very timely in terms of supporting that and offsetting the need to increase rates quite as much for the rest of the community. So I don't know that I have more necessarily to say at this time unless.
No.
Maybe you can borrow them instead of the issue last time.
Sure, yeah.
Through the screening and.
Yeah, or
being cleared, not being clear.
I can do the permits. We were waiting for the potable wastewater and potable water permit. That's been issued. I just have the list here. The TRB has been issued and the wetlands was finalized. And I think those were the only ones outstanding at the time. Okay.
Yeah, I think we already have the stormwater permits.
Yeah.
So we have both the operational and the construction stormwater.
Yeah. And I'll just say, I just want to apologize to the commission for the oversight in the abutters list. Obviously, it was not our intention to do that and would rather have had it right the first time. And moving forward now, there was also some confusion about the condos and how to notify condos, whether it was through the chair or every individual, but now we've got the complete list and we'll maintain it. So.
Okay.
Sorry for the extra time.
Thank you.
Anything else you should say?
Question.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. So we'll now ask Amy McCormack to explain her concern, sort of connect the dots, cause and effect under the three criterion, Amy, that you have asked for party status on 4, 9, G, and 10. You can sit or stand as you wish.
I'm just gonna read a little bit, and if I talk fast, and just tell me to slow down, but I wanna scoot through this, so I know we have to get through everyone, so. I'm Amy McCormack. My steep slope property is at 299 Wentworth Road, which directly abuts the resort and the trails. And I have concerns with this application. So a lot of what I want to say about the soil erosion and impacts, I kind of have it in the next hearing for the mountain bike trail hearing. So I don't know if I should repeat what I'm saying, but it's the same, it's similar content.
Okay.
So if we can hold that to the next hearing.
You'll have the same opportunity.
Oh, okay. So the subdivision sketch plan was reviewed by the town during, October 12th and 11/9/2023 DRB meetings. The applicant requested a steep slope waiver during the November meeting, which was granted by the town DRB. I was reading the testimony from Megan Murphy describing the warned negative impacts of development in the upper reaches of the Joyner Brook watershed region. And I also have concerns about the environmental impact of construction and development in this region. Construction on steep slopes requires extensive site preparation, increasing costs and construction time. Potential impacts of disturbance of steep slopes include erosion and sedimentation, especially with heavy rainfall and alteration of natural surface water flow, which can lead to increased runoff, potentially flooding the site and surrounding areas, and can impact groundwater levels. Many local governments prohibit or restrict development on steep slopes, often above a certain percentage grade, like 10 to 15%, to prevent the negative impacts. The town of Bolton defines the steep slopes as 15% grade and very steep slopes as 25% grade. I'm concerned that there's been a request to have this waiver, and considering the upper reaches of the watershed with erosion and flood issues in the recent years. So just concerned about the development work, that it will make the issue worse and have downstream impacts. So that's one thing. So I had a question. Can you talk more about your plan and design work that's been accounted for the complexities of building on a slope? And will you continue to be working with qualified professionals and machine operators who will properly address these issues? So that was, can we ask questions now, or do we wait till the end?
Are we still talking on number 4?
Yeah, soil erosion, drainage.
Yeah, I think it would be in order for you to ask Ms. Delorier a question about that now.
So can you talk more about your plan and design work for the complexities of building on a slope?
I can just say that the vast majority of the project doesn't require a steep slope waiver. There was one area internal, a small mound, maybe what would you say, 10?
Right, so our whole planning process was actually to cite the roads and buildings in the areas that were not met.
Sir, could you introduce your name?
My name's Scott Holmes, I'm a civil engineer, president of Lansing Consulting Engineers. So we cited out but the only steep slopes we're disturbing are small, like little ledge, like outcrops, not like long. In discussions with the Bolton DRB, what they were mostly concerned about was like building on a long, steep slope that anyone could look at and say that's a steep slope, not
An undulation.
not an undulation. that goes up, 5 feet in a spot. And so those are that was what we clarified during the town process, that we could disturb those areas. And as long as we stayed away from long, what anyone would consider a slope. And in terms of the erosion, I would point to our state permit number here, 4071.9DC, which states we would lean on that.
Okay, and then, the resort indicated in the, October 6th select board meeting that they're bringing in, working with the Chittenden County Planning Commission through a municipal planning grant to develop an improvement plan for erosion control and stormwater management along the access road, which is where the proposed subdivision will be. So I think it's important that this happens, this erosion control on the road happens before the development because of all of the construction and everything that's happening, and this doesn't seem safe to do that after. So I have a concern with that. The town of Bolton mentioned that there are 7 culverts along the access road that need to be replaced ahead of any development activities. This was during the select board meeting. So I would like to see these infrastructure improvements complete before the permitting of the development. It sounds like the town is committed to assisting with this work, but I'm concerned that the town resources are being diverted to the development project instead of working on the road, which is how everybody gets up and down the mountain. So just kind of priorities there. While these improvements will benefit members of the town that live in Bolton, I believe the applicant should be accountable for their proportionate share of the work. The cost that will result from the development's needs is custom municipalities. So I have a question. How do you intend to support these road infrastructure improvements, which are imperative prior to any subdivision development? And what impact fees or financial share of infrastructure improvements for the new development will you be responsible for?
The applicant, I think there is an independent capital planning project discussion with the town of Bolton on the Bolton Access Road writ large, which is independent of this project. And there's a long-term sort of access management discussion going on. The applicant would object to tying that long-term planning discussion with the town with this individual project, which has a stormwater discharge permit, which has an erosion and sediment control permit, which has management specific for this project already approved, managing all runoff and discharge for this project to both the 10 and I think it's got up to the 100-year storm to prevent downstream erosion. But the applicant is continually discussing with the town and the state how to manage the access road, which is a very heavily traveled road in the winter and has over time, as we particularly in 23 and 24 during extreme rain events, seen some washouts, and it's a continual process the applicant is looking at, but it is independent of this particular document.
Okay, thank you. It just doesn't seem very safe to be going ahead with the development and not addressing safety and concerns of the community before. So on to the private utility questions. I'm concerned that the developer's lack of expertise in successful project management and leadership will burden the community in town, which is part of that criteria. Currently, there's an open investigation on the federally funded community developed block grant utility project managed by the developer, who's also the sub-grantee that was enabling this subdivision development permitting process to move forward. So that had to happen for this to happen. Block grants are intended to improve and enrich communities. However, the management of this federally funded utility project has created undue burden for many community members and leaving a lot of the community with unresolved issues. There have been reported issues, and I'll kind of cruise through this, from theft, false reporting, lack of erosion control, lack of silk fences on steep slopes, damage to properties, unfulfilled legal obligations, improper stakeholder assessments and scoping, taking away water rights from community members, conflicts of interest, digging earth on steep slopes without proper reinforcement, even hostile teams and threats, missing curb stops on designs, inaccurate reports to law enforcement, state ethical violations on the applicant's mother, who was a town official, closing projects when when deliverables weren't completed, lack of communication with stakeholders, reports of water main line being held up by logs and nothing done about it, taking shortcuts in every process to save a dime, water runoff onto road, debris left over on the projects, culverts blocked, trees cut and dumped on private property and never removed, reports of grant misuse, unreported sewer breaks, not adhering to state approved designs, no engineering oversight on site, cartoon drawings for engineering designs and as-built records, unsafe practices such as large branches falling from the trees, nearly killing people while the developer is standing there and appearing that nothing has happened. I'm bringing this up because I think it's important to show that a current project has not been managed responsibly. This project was only to lay down a 700-foot water line on a mountain through and near private properties and compromised infrastructure. And it was carried out without professional or engineering oversight or lack of. And frankly, it's been a catastrophe and it's still ongoing. But so this is ongoing, and then they're pushing through a development, and it seems like it would be wise to help the community out with existing issues and address that before we're building new developments. So from the onset, Lindsay has assigned herself to almost every role in the project for this, with no oversight, allowing her to have complete control and no accountability. She made herself the project and compliance manager while at the same time she's receiving money from federal grants and taxpayers are paying for this project. It's been pretty apparent from the community that she stacked her families and friends in the town structure to change town development regulations.
Excuse me. Could you help us understand which Act 250 criterion this current testimony is addressing?
Responsibility for private utility company, or the local and regional plan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's tying in town structure and, okay. So anyways, professional projects don't support role structures in that way intentionally, so as to reduce conflicts of interest and ethical issues, especially in federally funded grant projects, just like the Picnic Loop subdivision. So on to criterion 9, private utility services. It's this criterion appears it's intended to prevent private utilities from becoming a burden to municipalities. Although the current town plan was specifically written to meet the needs of this development, it is likely to be burdensome for community members. The applicant has proven she's not experienced in leading and managing utility projects, which has already resulted in burden to the community and the town. She's not, she's in a rush to meet grant deadlines instead of following engineering and ethical best practices. This has been proven. I'm concerned that our lack of experience and expertise will be the same for this project. And I'm having a difficult time imagining how existing problems currently within the community are going to be addressed or improved when the focus is on a new subdivision. Just the timing of it. I'm not against a subdivision. It's just, we have major issues happening and it just doesn't seem responsible. For instance, in Megan Murphy's previous testimony, she described concerns about conflict of interest between the utility and the developer that's resulted in community members absorbing the cost of utility improvements required to serve future development. Another community member recently stated that the following: traditionally, developers fund utility expansion upgrades required for their projects, since they are the direct beneficiaries. The separation between a developer and the utility allows for genuine negotiations. And typically, when a developer needs expanded capacity, they fund the upgrades because they will profit from there. Here, they are one and the same, meaning there's no real negotiation. And they stand to make millions in capital gains while the community shoulders much of the cost. The presentations have framed much of the upgrade as community necessary, but in reality, a large part of the critical upgrades also aligns with enabling new development. In nearly all precedents, developer impact fees or direct capital contributions cover the proportional share of upgrades related to their projects. If they need additional capacity for resort expansion, they should bear that cost, not externalize it onto existing users. Grants and taxpayer-funded subsidies should not serve mainly to enable private developers' profit unless the community's gain is clearly documented and shared. Right now, the plan as written blurs lines between the community's needs and developers' needs. That ambiguity benefits the developer or the operator, not the community. In the Act 250 testimony submitted by the applicant in May, it was described that the potential for a rate decrease for drinking water with the addition of new customers from this development subject to PUC approval. Only a few short months later, the applicant informed the community that the utility was attempting to exit PUC oversight through its nonprofit status, and both drinking and water rates would increase significantly. While these rate increases would be shared with new customers obtained through development, there are no impact fees. Over the last month, the utility has made massive repairs to the sewer system at that development. Because this work was reclassified as a repair, the community will pay for the updates. However, involved resort employees and correspondence with DEC suggests that this repair was actually preparation work for this development. Furthermore, Waitsfield Telecom employees on site described the work as a full upgrade when this happened. While the community bears the cost of this repair, there's a broken sewer line on Wentworth Road, where I am, that the utility has been aware of for over 2 years and has ignored. And there are sections of fragile asbestos cement pipe through the system that's being held up by logs in many places. Despite reporting they were planning for a systematic replacement for aging service lines at a community meeting in November 2017, they failed to follow through and recently reported during a community meeting in August that replacing our distribution system isn't a feasible capital project at this time due to the enormous expense when asked about plans to replace aging asbestos cement pipes. I'm almost done. Furthermore, many members of the community, the town, and the state don't understand how fragile most of the asbestos water lines are, which make up 70% of the distribution system. Yet BDR focuses on system improvements and repair efforts and targeting the area of the subdivision, which is, of course, in the developer's best interest, not the communities, not the area serving current ratepayers that could use improvements or upgrades. So I have a few questions. Can you share a visual of the drinking and water system? Show us how the new development connects and describe the direction of flow between all systems. In that diagram, it just, you don't see any integration. We don't know how it's connecting to the overall holistic system. And then will there be any external oversight to ensure that costs associated with the utility are being appropriately allocated to the development and the community? And then will there be any oversight with independent and professional experts informing decisions about how utility resources will be allocated and prioritized between the development and community? So those are some questions.
Mr. Homestead, would you like to respond to any of that?
Yeah, I can speak to, how in the current project, how the water system will be connected. There's an existing water main that runs along Bolton Access Road. As part of our project, we'll tap into that main and extend a new line parallel to the road to see. I mean, it's difficult to see the line itself, but you can see the road. The new water main will extend along that same road and serve, each building as part of the project. There's a hydrant proposed, one, the first cluster of buildings and another at the end. So in terms of it being connected, it's a very simple connection. It's a one spot, one tying point for the belt. Similarly, at the employee housing building, one very simple, short run tapped onto the line of Bolton Access Road directly to the building with one additional layer.
Can we look at that?
Yeah, so I have the road utility site plan up. I'm not sure.
Yes, so if I could show it to you on the overall, but then if you went to, I believe it's 2.4, there's the series of plans, 2.1 to 2.4. And there's a blow up.
2.1.
But even just the overall, I can point it to.
Okay, you just zoom in on the overall.
Sure.
Here.
So the existing water main is in this area here. You can see the W. And we're tapping on and extending, parallel to the road all the way to the buildings. And then this existing water main extends along the road all the way down to the employee housing site, which might be office right here. And then we'll be tapping on here and extending directly. I also see correct.
It doesn't show the integration to the water line on Wentworth Road.
It's the Wentworth Road water line so far away from our project. I mean, that's not something we need to show as part of our development.
But it has the main water line going down the whole, if you can zoom out, it's right across the street from that project, Wentworth Road. And it connects to that, right? Or is it independent?
The water system is all connected.
Okay.
That's true. And that main line that we're connecting to, the whole system is connected, yes.
Okay, so during the federally funded project that's been happening and hasn't been closed out, the applicant made every effort in the world to stay away from that asbestos cement water line that was being held up by laws. So much and so that people were not allowed to connect to the new water line, and they had to get variances and get booster pumps. But the whole project was all about avoiding the asbestos cement water line, which feeds in right there. So how do we have such urgency and we have to be very delicate on Wentworth Road on an asbestos line and not on the main road, considering that the asbestos line is about 70% of the main water lines, according to the Hoyle and Tanner report. So how can we say it's not a big deal when you did everything in your power to avoid that, and you know what you did?
Sure.
Is that an applicant?
Could you? I mean, I think that may be more of a statement than a question, but if the applicant wants to respond, they may.
I mean, I guess I would just respond kind of holistically to that and the other list of things that she said about the previous water project, which of course was done by the water company and not the applicant. But, that, you know, few of the comments, actually, none or few relate obviously to this project. But I would just say that that project she's referencing, which was done some years ago, has been closed out, was done with engineered drawings. And I would also just mention that the main part of the sewer line that is running where that project happened was actually iron. There is AC pipe in much of the system. As there is, you know, that was what was typically used. The AC pipe that's in the system is in good condition, which is why we're not replacing it. Every time there's a leak, it's addressed promptly. I would just correct that there was a thought, there was a suspected broken sewer line a couple of years ago, a service line, which I believe is what Amy's referencing at the Douglas house. Upon further investigation and scoping, it was determined not to be broken, and therefore, she's right, it has not been repaired as it wasn't broken. I just would also say, I know that Amy has lodged a complaint, but I haven't been informed of any investigation of that grant, which has been closed, as far as I know.
It is not.
If you want to contact them.
It is not closed.
Maybe it's not closed, but I haven't been informed of any investigation. There may be, but I'm just saying that. Oh, and I would just say on the impact fees or on the fees, there will be a fee assessed of the development, actually. It's $240,000 to the water company for the picnic loop. I can't remember off the top of my head the amount for the staff housing building, but there is a fee. And, again, there are no upgrades required, so that those funds will accrue to the benefit of the water company without any need to apply any of those funds to any capital improvements related to this project.
So we have the capacity numbers. The current wastewater capacity has additional capacity for 160 bedrooms. Wastewater is calculated by bedrooms. The project proposes 117. So adequate capacity exists there without any improvements. Drinking water, current max per victim is 97,920 gallons per day. 76,598 are currently used, leaving 21,300 and change existing capacity. The project proposes to use 12,240, leaving approximately 9,000 gallons remaining as capacity. So there's no need for any infrastructure improvements to the water system or supply. There's adequate capacity. The municipality has no capital plan and risk by this. Municipality will not take over the line. It is a private sewer system. Town Bolton, DRB has approved that, and the town of Bolton has no issue with the water supply. It doesn't conflict with any capital program or capital plan in the town because it's private utility. It maintains private. So.
Ms. McCormick, do you have any?
Just one more piece and I'll be done.
Have you covered the town and regional plan piece, number 10?
One more piece.
Okay.
And just to say that there was documentation between the applicant and Vermont DEC talking about all of the challenges with the asbestos line infrastructure. And so that's documented that we were trying to avoid that and that's all, that's just the whole premise of the project of why it lasted so long. There was ledge around the asbestos cement pipe. you have an iron pipe, but the whole this whole road is the Wentworth Road is an asbestos pipe. So, and your team said they would never go near that, so I could share all that documentation with you. You just said wasn't a big deal. Okay, one last thing. The applicant and the town appear to have intentionally ignored important aspects of the town development approval process, such as properly notifying all adjoining landowners to them an opportunity, to give them an opportunity to participate in the town hearing procedures. Additionally, conflicts of interest have been ignored through this process, suggesting that the applicant received preferential treatment. For instance, there was a development review board member that did not follow proper state procedure, municipal procedure, despite having real and perceived conflicts of interest. I'm concerned that disregard for the aspects of a process developed to ensure fair and ethical decision-making will propagate throughout the entire development process. I am further concerned that individuals who purchase newly developed properties will be bound to complicated rules that serve the developer instead of the buyer. So I have a question about the covenant for the new residents of part of this community. Can you describe this new covenant for them? And is within this covenant, is there transparency regarding that the new residents will have to absorb the costs from any neglect or issues or problems from the utilities? And how are the new residents legally protected from having to pay for any existing problems or issues in the existing utility structure? Is there an attorney to protect them? That's the question.
Is that a question under number 10 or back on? Could you maybe help us understand how that's a regional plan? Yeah.
We have to, like in the builders, which is the land use regulations, there's conformancy and covenants is one of criteria in there in the town builders rules.
So is another way to frame it is that you're asking whether this covenant for new owners will be consistent with the requirements of the regional plan? Okay. Okay. Does the applicant wish to address that question?
The water company has recently converted to a nonprofit structure, and so you know, it's owned by its members. It's got a governing board made up of the manager and member representatives who will oversee the water company. All members of the water company have rights, including to the financial oversight. There's PUC regulation currently on the drinking water side, which may evolve away if once there's 100% membership, according to Vermont laws. But any new water company, any new water customers would be members and would have all the membership rights of that are, you know, that go along with being a part of the cooperative nonprofit structure.
Okay, that didn't answer the question, but I was asking how are the residents protected in the covenant? And who gave them legal protection? The covenant you wrote, so you have protection. How are they protected?
In the condo?
Yeah,
I'm not sure how that's relevant to any action.
because they're coming through, the utility company is needed for this. And in the covenant that they're gonna have, how are they protected when they're coming in, having to absorb costs from any negligence from infrastructure? I'm just asking a simple question. Has there been any protection for them? Has anyone reviewed anything on behalf of the residents? It doesn't sound like you have any protection for them.
So that's not a criteria 10 question.
I think one
Sounds like, oh,
one
good. They don't
one
have-
response would be that in a typical situation where someone is looking to buy one of these new units, they, as part of the title search, their attorney would be reviewing the covenants.
Okay,
And if they spot something that they're nervous about, they would disclose it.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just summarizing, I recognize the hard work that's gone into the proposal for the development, but I'm concerned that the site for the development in a high elevation watershed region with steep slopes and a recent history of flooding is a risky location for large scale development. All of Bolton Valley already suffers from erosion and storm water management issues which need to be improved or resolved before future development is considered. Furthermore, the developer and the owner of the utility has demonstrated little care for the community historically, and I can't imagine that this will improve with development and increase in population. She's having a difficult time managing with a small population. I don't understand how she's gonna turn it into a city and be able to manage that, but pre-existing residents will be further burdened financially as the utility prepares to connect more users, and their needs will be ignored more frequently as there's an increase in the population. Finally, it appears that the applicant has stacked the town structure with family and friends. Over the last several years, there's been numerous reports of conflict of interest with applicants and town officials to push this project through, whether they you did it ethically or not. I'm concerned that the applicant has received preferential treatment while the town has disregarded negative impacts that the project will likely have on the community and development and the environment. The town has made great efforts to ensure that the project is approved without appropriate focus on all of these potential negative implications, which will result in undue burden for everyone. So thank you, everyone, for letting me speak.
Mr. Carnelli, would you like to address the concerns that you've outlined under your party status request?
Yes, so I have a question to you about criterion 9E. And I'm not an expert on it, so please enlighten me what that, how that may not be applicable to.
Do you want to outline that?
Yeah, I can pull up the criteria. So 9E generally refers to when there's material extraction. So like a gravel pit is most often when we interact with it. I think if you were able to describe the concerns that you think are part of 9E, we can see if that is the appropriate criteria, or maybe it's more under like criterion 4, which is soil erosion and capacity to hold water.
Okay, all right, excellent, thanks. So how I think that might apply is the recent work and upgrade to a break in the line. We have our existing sanitary sewer. I believe there's a manhole somewhere here on the property. And as I was through the community, I was told that there was a break, so there was gonna be a fix. This entire line looks to be brand new. So it's almost as if this infrastructure is now complete ahead of schedule, ahead of any permitting, up to that manhole. And so that's where I think maybe 9E might be applicable, because this is over 300 feet in terms of how much earth was taken out and moved around in possibly steep slope, traversing stream beds, zero erosion protection. So that's how 9E
Okay,
came in.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think that is more appropriate to fall under criterion 4 concern, because 9E is really if like you're going in and you're extracting gravel in like a commercial sense.
Okay.
So I think the concerns you're describing fall pretty directly in what would fall under criterion 4.
And so any regrading, any of the removal of that and redistributing along that, it still falls?
Yeah, a lot of those things do fall under 4.
Okay, so I'd like to pull that out then.
Yeah, and Steph was saying that it can potentially, so generally soil erosion waste disposal is 1B, so it can fall under a variety of those. It sounds like with the movement of soil disturbance, grading, concerns of erosion, I think criterion 4, which is capacity of soil to hold water and soil erosion.
Okay,
Your concerns seem to fall directly under that.
and 1B?
Yeah, probably, I think 4 is probably it falls more appropriate. There were concerns about the material being moved somewhere and being like stored or piled or disposed of improperly. 1B is waste disposal. That is what that criterion is. So I think depending on what your concerns are, you can let the commission know.
Okay, so I guess we'll go down the path of 1B, especially if that line was upgraded. And majority of, and I don't know if it's the 50-year-old asbestos cement pipes that are part of our sewer system, or if only that's water that it's bringing into the community. But I didn't see any extraction of pipe there, rather than pipe that was just kind of laid on top. So brand new 8-inch, I think schedule 40 green pipe. And I think we might have some photos somewhere of that installation. So in terms of there just being a break, usually breaks are small sections, 16-foot lengths of pipe. This was a 300-foot upgrade from what I saw. So regrading, so 1B going into the waste disposal, if it was the asbestos pipe, what sort of remediation was taken to dispose of that pipe, as that is a hazardous material? And then kind of building off of what Amy said with our water lines all being that 50-year-old, they're coming to their life expectancy. That fiber does release into water. From what I understand, cold water may not be an issue. However, once it's agitated in your boilers, it then can come through hot water, and steam and inhaling that is not a healthy, it's not healthy at all to be inhaling asbestos. So when we're looking at a water line that is now coming down and serving the community, it has breaks all the time, and we get notices. Pressurizing that to accommodate, I think that's 30 units, is that 30 more units in this complex? We're now pressurizing that whole pipe and forcing more fibers down the system into people's homes. I think there's a health hazard there, and how we're going to dispose of that waste is that's a big project in itself. So, and then I think Amy brought up the fact that we are connected. If these 30 homes end up turning all of their faucets on and running water, what happens to the gravity fed main and the pressure for everyone uphill? Do they now lose pressure? I think that I'm getting outside of Act 250s, but it just, this discussion jogs some engineering thoughts, and I don't know if the engineers have thought through that process yet. So I'll move on to the next one, which is criteria 5. I agree with a lot of what Amy said and some of the criteria there, so we can skip through ones that without repeating. But one she did not bring up is the traffic down here for Bear Run. If we want to get closer in there. Part of the bloaters, which is our town procedures, I did not see a file, and I could be looking in the wrong place, but, once again, I was part of the I was not on the adjoiners list, and we should have been contacted. There's 15 units on Bear Run. Joe and Deb serve on our board, and we were all really surprised that no one really knew what was going on right across the street. We saw some surveyors there. There was rumors, there was a meeting, and there was about a 5-minute discussion at the beginning of the meeting, and we're going, so what's going on across the street with this employee housing complex? Now, I know it's listed as an employee housing complex right now, but I think, is this one of the lots that might just be eventual homes, or is this a $3 million build, $4 million build for employees? And that's rose some questions with our association, as in, where is their access to the ski trails? And I remember a DRB meeting where they said there was no formal access. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Usually people just have no access. But formal, it's like, okay. So we're gonna have people skiing down the property and now walking into a larger complex than our own. And I've dealt with easements before with the applicant, and there's a very interesting way of interpreting easements. To the point where we need attorneys to discuss. So when I heard that there's no formal access, immediately I thought, we're gonna have now possible employees traversing and coming right by all of our homes, which everyone takes pride in living slope side there and enjoying that peace. And so I thought that was interesting that we were not informed of what's going on across the street. I think the applicant did mention to the DRB, and they seem to just brush it off because they didn't properly inform us as well, the town, which kind of goes into criterion 10, in that the local, I guess, attitude is, if no one's here to say anything, then there's not a problem. And we kind of chuckled at that at our association board meeting, go, well, how are we supposed to know if we weren't informed? So I thought that was interesting. I brought that up to the chair of the DRB. He had said, if you feel so inclined, file with the, I believe the DEC, pay the fee, and you will be heard. And I thought, wow, this is something odd is going on here. It's not normal when a town doesn't follow their own procedures, and it just kind of slides it off on what is the largest development to ever happen in a long time up in Bolton, especially steep slopes, Act 250. Sounds like we have capacity for wastewater now, which is new to me because I was told that we're also upgrading our wastewater system and there's a $7 million investment. So I have never seen so many moving parts and lack of enforcement, on-site enforcement for such a.
Excuse me, Jeremiah, on number 5, which is traffic.
Yes.
Was your concern about employee foot traffic?
Actually, it's road traffic.
Okay, from going where to where?
Right across here, our driveway's here.
Yeah.
This road access, I think it's like 40, close to 40, 45, I'm not sure. It's downhill and it's steep. Coming around the turn up here is very dangerous. Constantly looking uphill for this, and then you have people speeding up this road, trying to get up the access road.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta step on it. I mean, I understand. Whenever we're pulling out in the mornings, or anytime, we're always surprised in hitting our brakes because someone's coming down now, especially during peak season hours, skiing. It's just a procession. We're having a driveway right across the street here. That, I don't know where that was in the blooters, where that traffic, assessment has been uploaded to, or if it was just uploaded to Act 250 and you have it. But this is a big, this is a safety concern in terms of criterion five.
And then on the next one you had was number 8, which is aesthetics.
Aesthetics. We don't really know what's going on in terms of aesthetics. Everything's pretty prelim. These are nicer homes. These are some of the nicest townhomes up there. We take great pride in it. We're investing a lot into our appearance. If this is employee housing, I'm thinking it's along the lines of sort of a cheaper look that would really clash with what's going on, especially with this particular development. That, I mean, realistically, having more homes, more tax base, you know, I'm a builder, that's fantastic for all of our investments up there. Are we having something that's cut corners, the last of the budget to build for employees? And is there a need for a large facility like that when we have further up already employee housing right across from the picnic loop? So I don't know if this is actually going to be employee housing long-term, or if it's a step to possible apartments for other home, you know, for private homeowners to come in. But I think that there's a couple issues. How are they traversing the property? They're not allowed. That hasn't really been enforced. We were told that they would have a drop off with a, what do you call it? A shuttle. And I just laugh. I don't know if any of you are skiers. If you're skiing downhill to your home, are you really going to get on a shuttle up top and drive down? Or are you just going to ski to your home? So I think that there's potential trespassing. And then obviously the traffic is a major concern, especially with school bus stops. We are having any sort of housing here. We're gonna have a school bus. And I think that once again, I don't know if there's a traffic assessment, so.
Number 10, which is the town and regional plans.
Oh, okay. So, I believe, you know, there's a formal complaint under 10 VSA 8007 and Act 250 Rule 38 regarding ongoing violations of Act 250 permit requirements and potential municipal conflicts of interest involving the Town of Bolton Select Board and DRB. It is alleged that the Picnic Loop development project has proceeded or received favorable local actions inconsistent with the requirements and jurisdiction of Act 250, and that these actions were facilitated by local officials with clear financial or personal conflicts of interest. In violation of Act 250 Rule 19, conflict of interest. The Picnic Loop development lies in an area of land subject to Act 250, established by prior permitting, historic history, and acreage thresholds. The town's DRB and select board have permitted or allowed construction activity without proper Act 250 amendment filings, public notice to adjoining landowners, or required environmental assessments. Construction, grading, and infrastructure work has been observed occurring without verified compliance with state issues conditions under the ones I mentioned already. Multiple local board members and municipal officials involved in these approvals hold direct or indirect interests in the outcome of the project or adjoining properties, raising substantial questions under Rule 19. And I'd like to highlight the appearance of conflict of interest. There seems to be, one select board member said, well, I don't see a conflict of interest. And I think that they need to understand that this has been a violation in the past that the state has had to put in place and say it is the appearance of conflict of interest. They're there to speak up on behalf of us and not themselves or other companies that they work for. And if they are speaking out of turn, then they need to explain how there might be a conflict of interest, which seems to be a procedure that the town just doesn't do, yet says they should be doing. Despite these issues, the town has taken no enforcement action and relevant site activities appear to continue unchecked. So I'm requesting, and I don't know if this is within your capacity, to conduct a site inspection and compliance review of the picnic roof project. Possibly issue a notice of alleged violation for any confirmed construction without proper Act 250 authorization. And investigate and document conflicts of interest under Rule 19 to determine if local actions are invalid or compromised. I affirm that I'm submitting this in good faith based on direct observations, public record evidence, and credible information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. That brings us to you, Mr. Costello.
It's gonna be short.
We don't always object to that. We won't today.
I guess, I think it's number 5. And just piggybacks on what Jeremiah was saying. I guess my concerns, number 4 and 5, in our bare run condos, we have 2 parking spots per unit. And right now, we just within our own community, we have pretty severe issues. If there's a visitor coming up, homeowner doesn't have access to their parking space. And so having employee housing or the housing right next door, my concern is just visitors are kind of like overflow from that development using our parking spaces. And then the same thing I think you mentioned earlier, just about traffic, is just having some protection in place so that folks aren't just using our like backyard private property as a ski slope and just funneling down to the employee housing area. We just have a lot of kids, dogs. We have the luxury of like having a lot of privacy back there with here. So just the idea of people coming through, seeing things, and it's not related to an employee, but it's just introducing more eyes to that area. So just an idea of like how to funnel folks so that they're not, because it is an easy point of access. It's natural with the way the slope goes, so you just kind of, okay. So those are my 2 main concerns.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the testimony? Now we will be giving an opportunity in the hearing recess order for filing follow-up memos if you wish.
Sure, I think I had better talk about the wastewater repair that happened. Just very briefly to say, we did make a repair to the sewer line. It was a long repair, and it is unusual that it's so long, though not unheard of. We've made similar lengthy repairs before where a significant length of line is compromised. We cameraed the line, this from manhole to manhole. The way you access it is through the manholes to get the cameras in, obviously. And we went from one direction and made it, maybe 10 feet before we hit obstruction. Went to the other manhole and made it maybe a little farther, but again, hit obstructions. There was a lot of sediment. The line appeared to dip down, drop, be full of sludge and debris. Very concerning. We talked to Nathan Kai at the state who oversees our permit, discussed the appropriate action and agreed that it needed to be repaired. We can't leave damaged or broken sewer lines unrepaired. When we dig down, the line was compromised in multiple places and did require repair, including being completely broken in one location full of sludge and sunken in others. So the repair was a standard response to a damaged line that the water company is obligated to do. And as far as its relationship to the picnic loop, it is in the location of that lot. However, it was a replacement in kind and there was no upgrade to it, other than obviously that it's a new line, which is in itself obviously an upgrade. But it's a replacement in kind. We did check, which we typically wouldn't do, but because of the existing wetlands permit there, we did check with wetlands first because it does go through a wetland and got the sign off there. Because it crosses a stream, we did check with Fish and Wildlife on the riparian department to give them the heads up as well prior to making the repair. All were in agreement. And as far as the plans for the picnic loop project itself, this line is it's a part of the main sewer line. The main collection network wasn't slated for any change or adjustment, so it's not touched as part of this project. Though the road does go over it. And so it is obviously important that we not build a road on top of a damaged sewer line. Whether this project moves forward or not, that sewer line needed to be repaired in a timely fashion. So I think that's it for that. We had a first sewer line, we had to fix it. I'll just mention that with Jeremiah's question, he mentioned he wanted to know if there was a traffic assessment. Yes, there is, as it's on the record. And just as far as notice, I mean, obviously we're here because we had some mistakes in the abutters list, but I will just say, in addition to the formal abutters list, we have held multiple community meetings, notifying all of the water customers of those meetings using the email distribution list. Amy wouldn't have gotten it because her lot doesn't have a home on it, it's a vacant lot, so she's actually not a water customer. But the others would have gotten it if, assuming they get bills, and would have been invited to those. And these projects have been discussed for years during the planning process. The DRB process, which I know doesn't relate to this directly, but just to speak to it, the Bear Run, so prior to adding all of the condos, I think what we understood previously was common practice was to notify the chair. The Bear Run Association chair changed at the beginning of January. We had confirmed that chair prior to the end of the year. And they changed maybe a week before we submitted a couple weeks before we submitted our 250 application with the abutters list. So that was outdated when we did that. That being said, and I didn't go back to verify this, but the chair was correct up until that January 1st. And the preliminary hearing and sketch review did happen prior to that. And then for the final hearing, we had understood that it was incorrect and we had updated that notice to that chair. So while every individual condo owner wasn't notified because we didn't understand that that was the standard, I believe the correct chair actually was notified. And certainly for the final hearing. And I should mention that that Jeremiah Carnelli was at the hearing, as well.
I talked to the chair, he was not formally notified. Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Delorier. Anything else you'd like to bring up? Okay. Thank you for your testimony. We will be issuing what we call a hearing recess order that may ask for some additional information and give you an opportunity to file things in writing. And pending that, we will stand in recess and in a moment move to the bike trails application, but we'll take a short break for that. And before we take the break, as everyone who is here for the picnic loop also want to continue for the next one? No? Okay. So,
What was the question?
does everyone who was here for this hearing want to be involved in the next hearing on the bike trails? Okay.
I think there are some folks that are not going to participate in
Yeah,
this. so-
okay. Okay, thanks. So we'll take a 5-minute break to stretch your legs, et cetera.
All right, we are not recording anymore. I'm gonna-